Hi, you are watching On the Town with Tanya. I'm your host, and welcome back. Hi again. Yes, that was awkward, but you know me. Awkward. Helena-Joyce, you know that. Awkward girl.
I was jamming.
Awkward girl. But thank you for coming back again this week. I really appreciate you all. This week we are talking about racism and healing America. What can be done about that? So I have three people with me, and one will be chiming in at some point via video. But three people with me that are very special, dear to my heart because of the work that they individually each do. To me, it's one thing to say that you want to heal racism or that you want to do something, but then you don't do anything. So for someone to actually take action in the world, especially during a pandemic, after a pandemic, it says a lot about them. So I appreciate each of these guests that are with me today. And so we're going to discuss the state of racism. And our first guest is the Director of Training at the Center for the Study of White Culture. And I will list on the site here how to reach them if needed, if you want to take classes. She has written a chapter in a recently published book, Rise for Racial Justice, How to Talk About Race with Schools and Communities. Please welcome Robin Mallison Alburn. Hi.
Thank you, Tanya. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being our guest. I appreciate you. And our next guest is an actor, and he is the moderator and co-host for Sustainable Conversations. Please welcome Chris Chen.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Tanya. Really great to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. It's so good to have you as a guest. And our next guest is she's not seen as of yet, but I'm going to introduce her so that it will be there later. She is the director of AIG. I believe she was a former actress as well, right? And she is one of I call it the glue to Sustainable Conversations, who is not able to be with us, but she will be chiming in at some point. Miss Karen Lehman Foster. And last but not least, she is a Broadway veteran, actress, singer, writer, and director. I don't know. She's always so modest about it, but y'all might have seen her on HBO. She plays the mother on Issa Rae's Awkward Girl. Okay, sorry, I had to say it. She is the creator of the Diva Mom Show, and she's working on a new project that you must see, Brown Skin But Cute. Please welcome the lovely Helena-Joyce Wright. Hi.
I'm going to get you, Tanya.
I know.
That was not in the script.
I know. I'm sorry. I had to do it.
Ad-libbing already.
Well, you're lucky I didn't mention the doctor part, but we won't go there. Anyway.
I'll consider myself lucky.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. Race is a big topic, and not so much that I care about it. It's just a thing that just keeps reoccurring. So you figure out how do I get ahead of this thing, right? Instead of being stressed about it or distressed about it, or instead of being a part of it, or ignoring it, what can I do? So I thought you three were the prime example of something can be done, and this is what I can do. And if I can't, then this is what I can do for myself to at least not add on to, right?
Exactly.
So that's why you're all here. I thank you. Racism in America has really gotten out of hand. Some people say, oh, when did it start? And I was like, it wasn't just the 16th. What is it? It wasn't just historically, they say it was an accident or something. I was reading something the other day, and it said it was a historical accident. Where the 3 million with the 3 million American troops.
It was very intentional.
Yeah. Hello. I mean, hello. Come on. I just thought it was hilarious that it was shortform.com. It was this other, just one little piece I was reading. There's tons of, Harvard had something. Everybody has their view on when it started and why. But it boils down to this: even if it was the soldiers, they wanted to control, how many more white soldiers there would be versus the other ones. Even if it was about that, that's hogwash. It really started to me with slavery. And the reason why it started, because I don't know if even the Vatican has pictures of well, I'll call it God is Black. They have pictures of these Black kings, with these.
Oh yeah, the Vatican is the greatest keeper of all the treasure. I mean, the Louvre is
Awesome.
was life changing, but the Vatican is where I'm trying to just spend a week just down in the museum, because it's crazy that they are the keepers of so much of African history and culture. And so it's interesting because they know the secrets, but
nobody wants.
What a world! I always say this. I'm sorry to jump in like this on our sustainable. What a different world it would be if they would just acknowledge who we actually have been to all of humanity, instead of just making a people feel like all they can do is dance and sing. Instead of, if it just could be fair, and that's something that I see as doable in terms of sharing information and accurate information.
Well, that's going to be remaining to see. It's something so simple that there's such a big fight on it too, and we'll get more into it. But yeah, I just wanted to give them just a brief history of allegedly. It all started. Well, they say before the 16th to the 18th century. I mean, who knows? When they started importing us, they say imported. I say dragging us, but we won't go there. They imported us to America from Africa. That's pretty much how it started, and it was a cover up for guilt and for things that they know they did wrong. So when you let the slaves go, now you had to figure out, how am I going to make money if I had them doing all the work? And now, when they figured out, the slaves figured out how to make money and how to, Tulsa, Oklahoma wasn't the only place that made it. There's tons of places that said, oh, well, they won't give us no food. We'll figure out how to grow our own food. We'll get our own farms. We'll do our own stores. Once they got that, then it became, well, we're going to burn this down. They can't have that. So then it became, well, darn, we can't burn everything down. So now the narrative, which I always equate to, and I could be totally wrong, what's the name of that movie in the 50s? I just totally forgot the name of the movie. Really, I'm having a senior moment. Birth of a Nation was the medium plight to get out to everyone that you're in danger from those brown people. You're in danger, which is a total lie. But I believe that's what escalated it and kept it embedded into our skin so long. Everyone, and now you have people that you can say, no, Christopher Columbus did not discover. Well, that's not what my grandmother told me. And I was like, girl, just use your common sense and think about, do you think he was the first person here? Like, just common sense. You don't even need history. You don't need a degree to know that. Like, that's just should be common. But I guess people don't travel. I don't know what the problem is that. But anyway, I want to show the video from EAG because that says a lot about racism and people's first experiences with racism. Chris, you want to set it up for me before I play that video, and then we'll jump in?
Sure. Thanks, Tanya. So this actually came out of Sustainable Conversations when people started sharing their own personal experiences and stories of their own feelings about race or their own racist thoughts, including me. I'm in the PSA. And then we put it together as a stronger voice rather than just people, each posting videos on social media. This is an organized group, and EAG, the Episcopal Actors Guild, does such good work for 100 years that they want to expand what they do by doing what little we can do to help fight racism. So
awesome.
This is the PSA that we came up with, rather than just putting out a statement.
Well, okay. So, guys, viewers, we're just going to go and check this video out because I think it's very helpful. Thank you for suggesting it, Chris. I appreciate you.
Sure.
All right. Let's see if I got this part right. Oh, I got it correct. Okay, here we go. This and that. Let me see.
I was 5 years old. And my older cousin was driving us back from Six Flags Great Adventure in St. Louis, Missouri.
I was 9 years old the first time. I was visiting my grandparents in Kentucky for the summer, and I'd gone to the store to get some bubble gum.
We had a town park that I worked at for several years as a teenager in the summers. Park had large signs at all the entrances that said town residents only.
And she said to me, when we go to Jones Beach this Sunday, can I take my new friend, Brittany? And I said, yeah, sure.
When I was 7 years old, my grandpa took my sister and I into an ice cream parlor.
I was 23 when I moved to LA, and I got on a bus in Hollywood for the first time. And when I looked around me,
But we were taught to challenge people within the park who didn't seem to be town residents. And inevitably, by example, what we were taught was it would be Black people.
The next day, she comes home with a photo of Brittany and she shows it to me, and I froze. Brittany was a very Black Nigerian girl.
Then suddenly the door locked, and I woke up. And she said, it's a bad neighborhood.
everyone on that bus was Black, except me. And I felt uncomfortable.
And I said to Kelly, I think it may rain on Sunday.
The woman behind the counter would not serve us.
The white woman at the counter said to me, "Don't touch that nigger." That was the first time that word was ever said.
Grammy took my sister and I back inside, wrapped her cane on the counter, and said, "We're next."
She started crying. She looked at me and said, Dad, you don't want Brittany to come because she's Black. And I admitted to her in that moment that she was right and that I had to work that out of my system.
There's still a lot of work to do. Breonna Taylor,
Trayvon Martin,
Tatiana Jefferson,
George Floyd,
Alberta Sproul,
Elijah McClain,
Eric Garner,
the Central Park Five,
Ahmaud Arbery,
Philando Castile,
Amadou Diallo,
Rodney King,
Emmett Till.
The Episcopal Actors Guild is a not-for-profit organization comprised of actors, singers, dancers, and those who celebrate their talent. Based in New York City since 1923, we assist performing artists in need, providing financial aid, helping to pay rent, a utility bill, a medical bill, providing groceries from our actors' pantry.
The AG has been helping for almost 100 years, and we want to do more. We know that social injustice and systemic racism still exist, so we are taking a stand.
Because there's still a lot of work to be done.
Injustice anywhere
is a threat to justice
everywhere.
We are EAG, and we stand with Black Lives Matter.
That is fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me see. Are we back up? Everybody's back up? Okay. All right, good. So thank you for that. I think it's very helpful. And to see so many diverse people sharing their truth, as we say.
Absolutely.
So I would like to go into what each of you do, Sustainable Conversations and the Center. And I'm trying to think if I would like first to see what your personal experiences were first before I go into that. So what was anybody have an experience of color, their first experience of realizing that they were a person of color or were not a person of color? Because I'd like to see how that plays into what you do now?
I'll go ahead and start. I grew up in Hawaii, so I grew up in a very diverse community where actually the minority is actually white people. So it's unusual dynamic. But I also grew up in a very military community, so I experienced discrimination early on. There was only one biracial family that we knew of, the Wilsons, that were black and white, and they were military, and we played with them. And I never became incredibly aware of color until I was in elementary school, and I realized that I was being put down by other people's parents, and all that. But as a kid growing up in Hawaii, we played with everyone, so it was never an issue until it became an issue. Now I'm fast forwarding to LA, because that's, you know, when I talk about being on that bus, because that's when it actually hit me that I had these feelings about black people that I wasn't sure where it came from. And for me, it came from media, because there wasn't a big black community in Hawaii, hardly any. I mean, really back then. And so my misperceptions of black people, the minute I was on the bus and looked around, and in that moment I stopped, because, you know, these all intercut. It doesn't say everything that I was feeling or thought. In that moment, I thought, well, why do you feel uncomfortable or afraid? Everyone's just going to work, just like you, Chris. And I had to stop and look at that. So that was the beginning of the work for me. And then I lived in LA during Rodney King and the riots, and all that really fueled my desire to do the work, to look at myself and my own prejudice and understand what it might feel like to be in someone else's skin. And Rodney King actually affected me greatly. Not what everybody thinks, oh, you know, the video is horrible, but I also had police brutality against me a year before. So when I saw that video, right away I thought, oh my God, and I was tased and everything. I was tased 3 times because I was angry. But I thought in that moment, seeing Rodney King, I thought, if I was a black man, I might not be alive today.
Wow.
And then it took a lot of work. And it takes a constant, as you all know, it's work. It's constant work. You know, being very conscious of who you are and who other people are and what other people's experiences aren't your experiences, or aren't mine anyway. So
yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, I can attest to one thing that kind of keeps me going with sustainable conversation is when I look and see the possibilities. Like, I mean, Chris and I have I've just been in the process. We've been in the trenches. So I see the value of doing the work. You know, the conversations we're having now are not the conversations we were having a year ago. And just, it sort of encourages me that it's possible on a larger scale, because what he's saying about the media, I started sustainable conversations with the belief, if anybody comes to me and tells me that they are not like prejudiced, we can't even have a conversation. We got to start with a baseline. You cannot live in America and tell me, oh, I don't see color. I don't have a racist bone in my body. It's not possible. I believe this because I think about the terror I feel when I go to certain neighborhoods, and I'm Black. The media bombardment is so intense that there's no escaping it. So the best thing we can do, and this sort of motivated me to start sustainable conversation, is like, face it, let's get at it and move through it. Let's not pretend anymore that it just doesn't exist and everything's, you know, not to attack, but to create a safe space where we can say, okay, I got some work to do. All of us.
Right.
You know, let's just do it. And I appreciate what Robin's doing, because so often whites come in to help us instead of help themselves. And so as I research the work that you're doing, I can't help but applaud it, because that's not necessarily, you know, the help we need is what do you guys, what's the internal work? You know, what are you going to face on? You know, we can give you information, and that's what I'm here for. Valid information. But what's your work?
Well, this is all our problem, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some people still believe that racism or structural or systemic racism is just a black. No, it's all. If you are born in America, it is your problem, and it's whether you're adding to that or subtracting.
Yeah.
And everyone's at a different playing level of the work. Everyone's at different levels, and some are right up front. You know, they're in the front lines, having to deal with it their whole lives, and they're very aware of what is. And there are people that are, you know, just becoming aware of it, or you know, maybe it's a generational thing, but they're not as aware. But they're being aware of it now, and they're trying to learn. You know, and that's what Helena-Joyce is saying about sustainable conversations. That, you know, people have come a long way. You know, and I get excited to see that when someone has a breakthrough, and they're like, they have that aha moment, like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Right.
Why is colorblind wrong? Why is saying that wrong? Why is saying all lives matter? Why is that wrong? Well, let me tell you why. And then when they get it, you know, again, everyone's at different levels of the work. It's great to see someone becoming more aware, you know, for what part they're playing in this.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, that's amazing. So, what's your role, Chris? Because Robin, I want you to tell me about the center as well.
I'm there to control Helena-Joyce.
Which just doesn't get out of line.
Helena-Joyce,
That's
right, always right, never wrong. So
That's right.
we're there to shut her
That's about right. That's about right.
That's
no,
right.
it's like I'm the moderator. I'm the moderator. So this is Helena-Joyce's baby, which
Right.
has brought so much to EAG and Karen Lehman Foster's.
Right.
And I'm there to just keep people on topic and keep the conversation going and stay on track. Again, it means so much more when people are sharing from a personal space, when it's a personal experience and story rather than just a political opinion. Because then that just leads to what you see all the time on forums, and people just, you're not listening to each other, you know. And with this forum, as you know, Tanya, just people truly listening and learning from one another. That's my hope always. So,
Well, thank you.
I'm the moderator. So.
You're a great moderator.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
So I kind of messed up and didn't let you finish answering the question. Sorry about that, Robin and Helena. So I'll let you finish answering the question, and then I'll ask you each what you do. And Chris, you gave me yours, so whomever would like to lead the way on that one, I apologize.
Did you have more to say, Helena-Joyce?
No, I'll piggyback.
Okay. All right. So I am going to hedge and say I think I'm somewhat typical of white people, so please don't judge. But typical of white people, I really, really did not get that I was white until way late. I did grow up in a Quaker family. I'm very grateful for that because my parents did teach me and my sisters that, you know, racism is a problem and we have to be against it. And that right there is more than a lot of white kids I know learned. However, although I knew that I was not a person of color, it really was not until I got involved with the Center for the Study of White American Culture, where I work now, it really wasn't until I got involved there in about the year 2000 that I really got it that, well, it's not just that I'm not a person of color, it's that I'm white. Hello, I am all white. I have always been white, always been, you know, and this matters hugely in who I am, what my experiences have been, what the conditions that I live in are, you know, just everything is impacted by that. So, so yeah, it was late in life that I found out what race I am.
Wow.
But you're right that, and I say this to my Black friends because they get so upset, you know, why are white people, you know, I don't get upset because I think if I were white, I would be clueless too. I just truly don't think I would have been walking around. I had Black friends, white friends, all kinds of friends. We were all pretty much at that point on the same level. I just don't think that I would have been sitting around pondering my disadvantaged white friends if the situation were reversed.
Right.
And so that's the grace that I extend. I can easily do that because I don't think I would have really been thinking about how different things were for somebody else. And I think that sometimes if we could approach it, it makes it easy for me to be in conversations and hear without my skin being so, there's enough that we're going to have to deal with. But if I go into it already, perched for attack, I don't find space to have any real meaningful conversation. Either somebody's going to walk away feeling very guilty and shamed or something, which that's not really my problem, or what I'm just wanting to be in a conversation where I can hear what I need to hear to respond appropriately. But if I'm already deciding how I'm going to feel about every situation, I'm going to have a lot of dishonest conversations, and I do not like that because I have so many white friends who are terrified of saying the wrong thing that nothing's getting said.
Right.
So,
and I very much appreciate that graciousness, and I agree with you that if we're going to have sustainable conversations, we need to not go in set to attack, like you said.
Right.
I think it's important to be aware that society, our white supremacist society, has a very strong invested interest in white people not knowing about their identity, not paying attention to that, not looking at, the emperor has no clothes kind of thing. And that's why we're seeing this craziness around the country of the reaction against the supposed teaching of critical race theory in our schools, because that's beginning to, point out that the emperor has no clothes. And parents, white parents and teachers and people are just going crazy. We can't have that. We can't have white kids knowing about whiteness.
Wow. Yeah, that's that critical race theory. Whew, you should try it out in Westchester. It is something else that you would think they would said they're going to sell all their kids or something. You're like, wait, what?
It's become so weaponized,
Yeah.
That's not what it was. It's not what it is. And now, again, politically, people just take it and make it into a weapon, and people buy into it instead of finding out what it is. Well, what is critical race theory? Do people really know what the 5 tenets are of it? They need to, exactly. They don't take the time to educate themselves,
It's crazy. But what I wanted to go into was what you each do. So if whoever would like to start, I want to know about your organization because my audience doesn't know. So I'd like for them to know. And that's why I had you on the show, because I want more people. I'm like, why isn't this in droves? Like, your site should be shut down right now because this is what we need. Like, everybody. But I keep forgetting that some people don't want to know. Right. And then there's the ones who want to, but they got no clue. So I'm hoping that we can like and share this video. I don't care where you share it to, just share the podcast, because it's not really about me. I could care less. But it's about somebody out there needs the information because they're clueless and they need to get the clue. So I appreciate you if you can share. So
if it's okay with Robin and Helena, I'll go first because I pretty much already said it. So I'll be real quick and fast. Again, the PSA I think really describes who EAG is, Episcopal Actors Guild in New York City. Sometimes people hear Episcopal and they get turned off because they're Christian, and you guys, I'm an agnostic. I'm almost atheist at this point, but it's about all faiths and none. That's who EAG supports. They support performers in need. So that PSA describes everything about what EAG has been doing for 100 years now. This year, 100 years. But also, since George Floyd, it was really Karen Lehman Foster, the executive director, said, we need to do something. And rather than just put out a statement, which so many other organizations and unions did, we wanted to do more than that because we're serious. We also do required DI training once a year for the council and staff. Now, this is a not-for-profit organization. They're not employees, but that's something that we do. I write an article called DIY with the DEI every month for our membership. The membership's about 600 people. And just so people can have their own self-education and self-awareness on all things DEI. And we always recommend something to read, watch, and to learn. I just want to backtrack a little bit about Robin was saying about being white. There's a great film called Whitewashed. I think you've all seen it. I highly recommend that to everyone, because that people forget that white is a race, but that also race is a made up thing. So, Yeah. So I think the PSA really describes to a T who EAG is. It makes very clear what we stand for. And part of just to finish off, I picked the title EAG Hearts Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter itself can be controversial because of the organization. It's a slogan, and it's just Black Lives Matter. And that was the intent with the PSA, that Black Lives Matter, and that's what EAG stands behind. So,
got it. Thank you. Thank you for
Not
sharing.
the movement.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Right. I totally get it. Because people are confused and they just like to mush things up.
Yeah.
Make a little mince pie.
Yeah.
Mince pie. I did not say that. I did not
No,
go on that.
it's important. I wasn't even in that part of the clip, interestingly.
Oh wow. Oh, okay.
I was like, oh, wow, how fortuitous that was, because the organization and the belief are two totally different things.
Okay. So thank you for clarifying for us, for sure. So who wants to go next?
Well,
you do.
Okay, sure. When I went to Karen Lehman Foster, who was going to be patched into the conversation after the George Floyd incident, murder,
right?
I was invited to these panels and all these, talks, and I would sit there and I would get so frustrated. I've shared this with Chris. I say, yeah, I would go in and, blacks were outraged and speaking about it, and whites would, have the look of a, stunned deer. Like for some people, it was the first time. It was just like a thrashing on every level. And I understood it. I was learning myself, because I did grow up in what some might consider privilege, but it was every black person I knew privilege. So it was not a special case situation. It was that was my reality. And so when I was hearing other blacks talk about, how rough it had been, and how mistreated they've been, and I never been called nigger. I had never, it was just not part of my reality. So I was taking in information as well. And just the way I'm wired, part of me was like, okay, let me walk in someone else's shoes for a minute. If I'm feeling this, not to make the feelings go away, but just to try to give it some understanding, or just to try to say, okay, how long can you doing this and have it be sustainable?
Right.
So my interest was in a conversation that I didn't want to be involved in, that because I didn't see it as sustainable. I didn't even really necessarily see it as, I didn't know how helpful it was, because people will kind of, listen and pat you on the back and, and then run away, not just walk away. There was no stick and stay in that conversation. It was just going to be a beating and a thrashing and a beating. And how long could that be sustained? My interest going to Karen was in a conversation where we'd be uncomfortable and truthful, and that we would get a chance to, in a safe space, confront racist things that have not make you a bad person. It makes you a misinformed person. But if we could just find that place, then maybe we could start having some honest, truthful conversations. Black, whites, Asians, everybody. We've touched on a lot of things. Some internal racist thoughts. And that was what drove me to create this. I don't necessarily want, everybody's not supposed to leave the conversation feeling good and, joyful and kumbaya-ish. But at least if we could just have some level of honesty and transparency, maybe I am racist. What can I do about it? then I would find that to be a worthwhile conversation. And I do push it because we all
Yes, she
have
does. Yes, she does.
push it.
Some of the so we pick one topic every month, specific topic, so that it doesn't go all over the place, right? Because racism is just too much, right? So we pick something specific like
Right, it
CRT
is.
or the N word or colorism, and
Right.
some of the topics that we picked is they're but it's good because it makes people really think. No, sorry,
Yep.
but yeah.
No, so that was how I write and you know, and so I'm an observer of life, and I thought I would be a good person for this because my life was just so very interesting. I didn't know that traveling around would be helpful. I didn't know that having a mom at the United Nations was going to be useful to me one day. I didn't know that, you know, all these pieces would give me a perspective that was actually helpful to hear different points of view and have a really different point of view that I could share. And then studying, you know, doing my PhD work that I did have to stop, but doing it at Cal in African American Studies was also helpful because I got exposed to a lot of information that I normally might not have. And I get to bring that into the conversation as well.
Yes, so you are an authority of sorts on that.
Of sorts. As every person walking.
Yes, but I think it's extra things going on that helps. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I've noticed that. I think that it does help to have a breadth of experience that you can kind of just hear something different from what every other Black person may hear. Some, you know, we have a way of listening and hearing, and it's frustrating sometimes because it's like that's why America is where we are. We just simply are all in over here or all in over there. And when I was researching to segue into Robin, I was willing and wanting to do the conversation because I just was nervous that it was just going to be this liberal conversation that can be also very maddening. And I really did appreciate the approach that it was not necessarily, it was just let's learn.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I thought you guys were a perfect match.
Yeah.
Trust me. I checked out all levels of the personalities and said, oh, this is like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, it is because it's straight, you know, let's look at it.
Well, and with all three of us within Sustainable Conversations, we come from really Helena-Joyce is the conservative. I mean, I can say that, right? Would you agree? And
I know, I don't agree, but I mean, y'all are so far over there that I look hella conservative.
Karen far left. This one sort of right. I'm more moderate liberal, but you know, but it's good because that's what we need, right? When you can really have a conversation. And
right, they can't, you know, like when I said like I was born raised Republican, they were like, wait, drop the stop. Everybody stop. That just meant something different. But go ahead, Robin, you please jump in. Chris digressed.
Yes.
Okay. I know Tanya's got her eye on the clock, so I'll try to be short and sweet here. The Center for Study of White American Culture was born in 1995 out of the understanding of something that Chris was saying earlier, that racism is about everybody. Everybody in this country is involved in it. And yet a lot of the time, especially for white people, it's regarded as, oh, that's something that people of color got to deal with. That's over there. That's their problem. Too bad for them. But the center knows that actually it's a lot about white culture, white people, white history. And so we do trainings and consulting work to help educate people about the whiteness piece of it. That's the main one arm of our work. The other arm that goes with it is the building multiracial anti-racist community. That's something that we are very visionary about. Is that, okay, if we're going to leave racism behind, where are we going to go? Well, what we want to get to is a society where the center is not white people and whiteness, where the center is multiracial, anti-racist community. We actually have a conference coming up in June, Father's Day weekend. We'll be doing a conference on that topic.
So how do the workshops help move people into action?
Well,
a lot of people take classes and they say this and they say that, but we want to see results.
Yeah, absolutely. For one thing, it borrows from the same idea as sustainable conversation, that first of all, people need to be able to talk about these things. And generally in our society, people don't know how to. So the workshops, for one thing, they help provide people with the tools and the language and the concept and the analysis and the realization that, okay, you're not going to explode and you're not going to turn into a racist by talking about racism. So that's one thing. And then also as people are exposed in the workshops to the actual history of racism and the current situation, what's happening to people of color around the world now, what happens is that your humanity surfaces. You begin to realize, wait a minute, I care about this and I can't have this. And if you're a white person who never paid attention to it or never thought it was your problem, you start to find out that, well, actually, I am implicated in this and it is harming me too. And these are powerful motivators to say, you know what, let me find out what I can do. I cannot just sit here anymore.
Wow.
Tanya, I want to ask that question because I do also ask, what would the motivation be? Like, what would besides just being a good person, like, what is the hook? I mean, like, I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm a white person. What's going to make me care about racism?
That's the $64 million question. I know our time is short, but so I'm going to reiterate, racism is harmful to white people. You can come to one of our workshops and we'll break that down and show you how, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, physically, you are harmed by participating in the oppressor role in a white supremacist society. Beyond that, there's that amazing book Heather McGhee wrote, The Sum of Us. Some as in SUM, the sum of us, that breaks it down in incredible detail about how racism is damaging our whole society. Economically, we're harming ourselves. She gives these great details, like how in communities where they are integrated, the pollution is less. I forget how she explains how that happens, but communities that are more segregated, where the white people are keeping to their, superior selves, we have more pollution. How is that a good thing? So it behooves all of us to be working together in a multiracial, anti-racist community.
Absolutely.
That's what we need to highlight. Because if we can get that part in there.
Yes, I agree. White people need to know we will actually be better off. It's been drilled into us that the good life is being the white person at the top of the heap. It's not the good life. The better life is being part of that multiracial community.
Robin, you in the center is doing really great work.
Yeah.
Really great work.
Oh, that's us. You haven't even got the half of it. I had to ask you this because I remember we were talking once on some panel and I forgot how it became up. Like, well, white women are not responsible if their husband was slave owners or whatever. And you answered with something that how they played a role in actually helping slavery or helping this narrative of privilege go on.
Oh, absolutely. Stephanie Jones Rogers wrote this amazing book. I'm not sure if I can get the title, but it's all about the white women who enslaved people. It wasn't that their husband owned African people. It was the white woman. She was the owner, the enslaver, and she did not necessarily treat the people she owned with kindness. It's a whole book. They were her property. That's the name of the book.
Okay, I'll look into that. That's and I'll only mention that piece because some people say, and I've had friends, white friends and black friends say things, and I'm like, what? But they've said things like, well, what do I have to do with my ancestors and why am I a part of this? I'm not a racist. This has nothing to do with me. And I keep saying over and again, it's like, I'll just send you a link. Please take the class. Please go to Sustainable Conversations. Just go and just come back in about 6 months after you've attended, and then we'll talk, because that's the only time we can have dialogue. We can't have dialogue if you don't even see what the problem is, right? And they're sweet, they're kind to me, but I know that there's issues. How do you fix people like this? The big question for each of you is children. How do we teach children about this? That's a big thing. That's one thing I love the Center for, and Sustainable. I love you for this, because if you're a parent and you're in Sustainable Conversations, you're going to go back and figure out, let me see how I can break this down to my kid. So I appreciate it.
I know you know this, Tanya. We offer a workshop on raising anti-racist white children, but which is also an excellent education for raising any child of any race to be anti-racist. That's coming up in March.
It's going to be fabulous. Helena-Joyce, you want to chime in on that?
Well, I don't know, because I always felt, I don't really know how my parents did it, but I tried to do what my parents did. I feel good about myself. I feel wonderful about my people. And that's not with blinders on. Right. And so when I'm around young people, I found that's the best message I can give. I try not to have a chip on my shoulder. I examine things people are saying. I'm not, super sensitive. And I do have information. And I think that one of the things my parents did, and we can do this for the next generation, is they taught me to think, and they taught me about Africa. And so when I walk through the earth, I walk a little different. I don't feel less. I don't feel anybody have to, and I've run into it. I see the racism, but I don't, I have a choice of what I'm going to buy into. And I do try with my children, my grandchildren, to have them see that as an example, as a way to carry yourself through life, and not apologize, and embrace who you are and what God gave you, and celebrate it. And when I run into problems, deal with it.
Right. That's a good way to have it. And that's the thing about it, is like, because one of my friends with the Christopher Columbus statues, they wanted them knocked down. And she was like, well, why are they going to knock down? He did a lot for Italians, blah, 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 blah. And she was just going in on, I was like, girl, stop. First of all, stop. Because we're not going to go into the real story. I don't need to tell you the real story. I'm sure if you just do your own research, you don't even need everybody else's research. Do your own research. You're going to find out he discovered nothing.
Okay, but Tanya, can I ask you, do you think tearing down all the statues is really like no,
I don't want it. I don't care if, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought I muted. So I don't care if they tear it down or don't tear it down. That's.
But just know the story.
Yeah, I totally get what I get. Why some people say, whatever. I don't really care, because to me, it was a waste of money anyway. You never worship any man, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. I would never do a statue of anybody, including my dad. I wouldn't do this. It doesn't make sense, because we're human and we make mistakes all the time. So what happens in 200 years when you find out that I made a mistake 150 years ago? Now the statues. So to me, it's a waste of money. That's my personal opinion.
However, I would like a statue of me, put up at one time.
Well, we might make an exception.
Yes,
but you know what I'm saying? I get the point that it's just the tangible thing. Who cares? It's the lesson around it, and that's more important than the actual thing. So I'm one of those that's like, yeah, I would like certain things. I'd like to see them tearing down certain people. Like if it was like Hitler in the middle of a square, I don't think I want to see his face every day I walk. I'll probably just cover it up with a scarf. But that's, so it depends what it is. But I'm not one of those. I'm not on the bandwagon of any of that. I'm in the bandwagon of
healing.
Who's out here trying to do something, and where are they? Can I find them? Can I get them on here? That's what I'm trying to be on. Because that's at the end of the day, and we'll get to the end and talk about solutions. That's all we want, solutions. What can I do to be a better person so that when I see Robin, I'm not scared? Oh my God, Robin. Oh, that's just crazy. Why? And one thing I love about London, I got to say, and I'm only in this part because there's other parts I know there's other issues, but this one little section that I'm in, well, first of all, everybody's mixed, so that's probably why it's like this. But that's the one thing I have not seen. I walked into a store and the lady's pocket was sitting there, and she didn't grab it. Now in America, y'all know she would have jumped on that thing, went down, get the bag. Or if her little kids was walking by, she would snatch them kids up like, oh, get away from her, get away. I've had that happen to me at a high-end health club. And I was like, if I'm a member, do you think I want your kids? Like, that doesn't make sense. But that's the kind of thing I was dealing with. And that's just me. I didn't even care. I was laughing at it, honestly. But in truth, it still hurts that someone thinks that they're going to grab their kids because they think I want them.
Nerve, I know, right?
No, I'm done. I mean, yeah, it's like I love my kids. I don't need it anymore. But here I had kids coming up to me in the playground, 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds, platinum blonde, saying, "Hey, you want to play?" Because my grandson's so cute, that's why. But it's not me, it's him. But they're like, "You want to play?" And the mother's like, "Yeah, just chill, no problem." The mother doesn't say, "Who are you? Where'd you come from?" It's totally different in America, totally different. And I didn't realize it until I got back out. You know what I'm saying? I've been out before and realized it. When I lived in Paris in the 80s, it was a whole different ball game. You know what I'm saying? Helena-Joyce, I'm sure some of you know you've traveled. But that's kind of how I felt like, oh, wait a minute. This is the first week I didn't have to worry about, like, am I going to get shot by a policeman? Oh, they don't even have guns here. They have guns here, but very few people. And you hear of incidents, but not like the USA. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to worry about my kids going to school and not coming home. You're not going to worry about that. What is it that have made the very people who started the whole thing chill out and get a generation of people that are just like, no, you're a human being. I'm a human being. I had a lady literally say to me, she thought I jumped in front of something. I was on the line. And I thought she was first. She thought I was first.
Oh no! Wait, my computer is dying. Wait, I don't know why. I don't know what's happening.
Plug it in.
I don't know but it's plugged in. That's why I'm screaming.
Oh no! Oh boy, we better wrap it up. Okay.
No, I'll figure it out. I'm sorry, that was not supposed to be live. My bad.
That's okay. So she'll be back in a moment. But the point was that why some people here are just totally, and they started with the English. I mean, the whole slavery thing and all that stuff. Okay, it started, but now it's like you come here and people are way different. I went to a place the other day and every color under the sun. And so it's just pocketbooks laying down here, just with coats there, prams there, scooters there. Nobody's like, oh my God, get your scooter. Why? How did they do it? What did they do? But you know what? I know what they did. They had conversations. Because I've listened on some of them, and they're not scared to have a conversation about race. They're not scared to say, yeah, I was a little messed up on that. Yeah. They're not scared to say that. And that may be the key. So Robin, with that being said, I don't even know. Do you think racism, guys, start with the environment, family? What is it? Because right now it's exhausting me. It's exhausting to deal with racism. So exhausting. I don't know how you guys stay charged up. I really don't. I'm trying to.
Well, having conversations with other people who care about it and know about it, that's part of how I stay charged up. So like this right here. And I am not very much of a historian, but what I have learned at the center is that generally it's agreed upon that the history started in the United States with the colonies, with the elite white leaders in the colonies who hit upon this strategy that, they were going to just stay at the top of the hierarchy, and they created this divide and conquer strategy. And the point of division was race. That did not exist beforehand. People did not, see each other as being of different races before this happened in the colonies. But that's what took place, is that they said, look, you got this group of people that have white skins, and we are the better ones. We're the superior ones, and everybody else is underneath us.
Right. Well, we talked about that with the art, and if you go look at some of the artwork around the country, not in America, I don't know why they hide this stuff. I've been looking at artwork, and I'm like, wait, that's somebody black in China. And there's like, they'll tell you about the black Chinese. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You know, the black Russians, like there's so many things that people were, it would be like me and Chris were hanging out and I, you know, he has his crown on, I have my crown on, and I have gold, he has gold. There was no like, Chris, I'm better than you. And Chris, like, you're better than me. It was just people. I mean, you see literally paintings, famous paintings of kings and queens hanging out, and they were all colors, and no one looked in the picture shook, like, you know, no one. And so with that being said, we know there was a time where you're a human being, I'm a human being. And then, like you said, Robin, at some point, someone said, wait a minute, hold up. Divide and conquer. And that's when it just became a thing. And then it became a frenzy in the media.
Well, actually, historically, we can thank Portuguese for that.
I was just about to say, actually.
Gomez de Surara is the person that was, we can thank him. He is the person who, he was charged with creating a basis by which slavery could be justified for Christianity's sake. And you might be familiar. You're familiar with John Bywin?
John Bywin, that sounds familiar.
John Bywin, Robin. John Bywin is doing some very interesting work on white people.
Oh, I know.
Yes, he's a journalist. The journalist. He does a piece on that being brought to him as well. So he's I found that fascinating and started doing research on it as I tend to do. So it was very much a social construct and a way to justify the mistreatment of blacks and to justify the monies that it was just greed and a way to justify that greed. But I also do point out, because studying history, you know, that long arc, when I put to other people that if you believe anything about reaping and sowing, then blacks enslaved first. And somehow that is a much more difficult conversation for blacks. Blacks enslaved whites or Jews because blacks are Africans. And for whatever reason, we need to separate Africa from Egypt, but it doesn't work like that. And if you look at the whole of one's history, that's why we look at this moment in time like it's the only moment in time. But there is something to reaping and sowing. And so if you study history truthfully and just objectively, then we're not the innocent victims of all this. I mean, you got to look at the whole thing. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right now.
Right.
It just means we need to be able to look at our role in all of history. And and even challenge whites. Sometimes it's more difficult for them to see themselves as having been a slave than it is having been the enslaver. And that's interesting to me.
Right. No. Oh, wow. So much to this. I mean, we could do like a 2-hour special on this because it's that much. But I know some of you are on a time deadline, so I apologize. The time just flicks us so quick that I just always say, it's ending now? Are you serious? But think about your final points as I reintroduced the director of AIG, Karen. Thank you so much for chiming in with us. We appreciate you.
Our fearless leader.
Yes.
That is she.
So we're just catching up on what we all do and, you know, racism, anything you want to chime in on. I know time is of the essence for you, Helena-Joyce, too. And Chris, I know
I'm
you
good.
all.
It's all on you.
Good. So,
I cleared it.
Yes. All right. So, Karen.
I'll need to take off in a couple of minutes. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm so glad I got to be here.
Well, did you have a final point, Robin? Did you want to just rest before you leave? Any workshops coming up? I'll put the link in after before we leave. So
sure,
put it up.
We have Transforming White Organizational Culture. So if you belong to any institutions or organizations, come out for that in February, and March is Raising Anti-Racist White Children.
Okay.
And I just want to say that it's so important to talk about racism. People say talking about racism is divisive, but you need to understand, no, racism is divisive. That was there first. Talking about it is the only way that we're going to, get anywhere in solving the problem.
Absolutely. Well,
Thanks
you,
for the
Robin.
extra words, and I'm going to back off and head out soon. But thank you so much.
I
Robin,
appreciate.
I hope you will join us on one of our sustainable conversations. That would be awesome for me.
Monday, January 30th, Monday at 7:00.
Yes.
EST. Yeah.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Great to see you, Robin.
Yes, thank you, Robin. So, guys, just to update you, that's Robin Alpern, and I'm sorry, Malison Alpern, correct? We appreciate you taking the time to come because I know you guys are all very busy, but the work you're doing is amazing, and I think the world needs to know about it.
I agree.
I just can't understand. CBS, where are you when we need you? Really. Because it needs to be that level. I'm serious. It really does. Because how many people are really doing something? Everybody's just chattering, but that chattering does nothing. You all have actual solutions, and you're doing something toward those solutions. That's big. So I appreciate you very much, and you teach me to be a better, less racist person. Not racist, prejudiced person, because I don't think I could be racist, but. Is that true? Is that you heard that stereotype? I cannot be racist because I'm Black. What do you think?
Oh boy, I have to leave. But in my view, the important thing here is that racism is a system. It's not about personal. It's not about individual. It's a system. In the system, it's a one-way system. In the system, white people are at the top and are the oppressors with privilege. People of color are the oppressed. So in that system, who do you think the racists are? As I see it, and that doesn't mean that you're an individually bad person if you're a white person. It just means that you occupy the role of someone who's in the, oppressor role in the system. That's
but then it gets complicated if you actually are someone that actually supports a policymaker or lawmaker that keeps that system in place, and you're a person of color. So that's where, for me, it gets complicated.
You are
for
correct.
Me to say no, a person of color can't be racist because it's otherwise it gets into a big fight. But can everybody hate? Absolutely, which is sad. We don't want anybody to hate, but everybody can hate. But there's a long thing about that. You talk about the sheriff in Milwaukee, stuff like that, or Herschel Walker. You go, well, these are people that are keeping that system in place. They're keeping those policies in place.
Right.
You know
That's correct.
So
I do know what you're saying.
Then it just comes down to titles and labels, but that's a whole long conversation, which we should have for sustainable conversations sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Bye, Robin.
Good to see you, Robin.
But in the meantime, thank you. Bye. That was Robin. Thank you so much. You guys, I'll leave the link at the end for her classes. And you can always inbox me for any information for any.
I would like to get the name of the book that I didn't have my pen handy.
Yes, the sum of
I'll
get that from her. I'll get it from her. Okay. So Karen, welcome and thank you for joining us. We were talking about things like the first time we experienced racism and what the center does, and what Robin's Center does, and what Sustainable Conversations does as far as helping people get a better insight and start taking responsibility. So if you'd like to chime in on something, please be my guest.
Well, first and foremost, I'm sorry to be coming in right at the end. Okay. I can't wait to watch back this entire show and see what I missed, and learn more about what Robin does. Just hearing her for a few minutes was really insightful. I'm sure that Chris and Helena-Joyce have already talked about our Sustainable Conversations program, but we just felt that there was a need to continue having conversations that were open and honest. And that was the only way that we were going to grow. And we've been doing it now for this summer it'll be 3 years, and it
Wow.
feels. I can only talk about my perspective as a white person on the Sustainable Conversations, how much I have learned from Chris and Helena-Joyce and the other participants that I never really knew. And a lot of that just comes from people being brave and honest and willing to share their situation and their story so that we could all have a common understanding of what went on. So it's been really helpful for me. It's been really helpful for our organization to do this work.
Mhm.
And I'm just so glad to be a part of it. And we're glad to know you, Tanya, as a supporter of our work. And it's been great. We're so glad that you had us on today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, Helena-Joyce, I had a question for you. So you're raised, I call it proud girl like me. So, there's some people, I'm just trying to get your perspective on this, and you guys can chime in. So like, you were raised in a very positive environment to feel good about your brown, right? And so was I, even though I was a foster kid, ironically. My mother was a civil rights leader. Thank God. She was on point. And so I have a lot of similar, feelings and backgrounds or whatever. And do you think that helps in healing racism, right? So if I come in as an African-American or an Asian or a white person, whatever I am, doesn't matter, with a certain self-love, I'll call it, right? And well, yeah, you are proud. I guess you are proud. You can be proud. Yes, proud is the word. Okay. And I run into someone from somewhere else or something else that I don't know nothing about. Wouldn't it make a better conversation? Do you think that made you have better conversations because you come from a background where you already have your self-worth? So there's nothing no one can take from you by saying, oh, you're brown, because you and I would be like, yeah, we are, right?
Kind of lucky that way. Yeah. I mean, and I think back on all the things that maybe might have even been meant to offend me, but absolutely didn't, because I did go, I mean, even in Brown Skin But Cute, writing that, how some people couldn't wrap their heads around it. Just, that was shocking for me because, I didn't desire anything else, and how wonderful it would be if we could start putting kids out that it wasn't to take away, it's not to take away from anyone else, but you can't take away from me either. And if you go out in the world like that, I think what I experience is different because I go into the world like that.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think, I mean, looking in hindsight of all my friends or people that I've met who are racist and who are not racist, I'm looking like, well, they had a certain positive energy about them and nothing could stop that. Like you can't, like even as a kid, even as a foster kid, you couldn't call me. I had people call me the N-word. I did have, and then 2 times when I was really young, I took offense to it and I did something very, very naughty. Okay, I won't tell you what that was. But so I was young and stupid, as they say. But you could never say something like you're brown and dirty or you're ugly. And I've heard that said to my other friends. And I just nudged the girl and I was like, girl, you gonna let them tell you that? You better I'm the ice cream you've never had or something. I don't know, whatever. I'm making that up. But whatever you want to say, you're like, no, you can't say that about me. And that some people say, oh, you're conceited. No, I'm not conceited. It's just that I believe if you feel good about you, at least in the general, I'm not saying that I'm pretty. I'm not saying that I'm this, I'm that. It's just as Tanya, as a human being.
You're pretty. Shut up, girl. Go ahead.
I see those posts. I see those posts all the time.
You see my blush?
Come on now. Okay, go ahead.
No, but seriously, if you feel confident in just your little old self, right, then nothing can come along.
Then it's not somebody else's responsibility to at least, like, we all come to the table feeling equal. Now we can do some work.
Right.
But if you got to build me up and make me feel I'm as good as you. If I don't know what that is hard, because now you gotta build this person up and now expect him to feel equal. I don't know how that works.
Exactly. But I'm just touching on it because I'm just seeing it as a side view that maybe if we all have confidence, then without not cockiness, there's a
If
difference.
it can start at home,
I'm better than you. Not that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that I'm just so structured in who I am as a human being that nothing can get me off this little rock. Like nothing can get me off the rock. And that can start with I literally talked to a skinhead for an hour on the train. He didn't like it, but for an hour on the train, a Nazi skinhead who had the swastika, his tattoo was the swastika, and I was so offended by it that I just had to say something, and I did. And he couldn't get off the train for 45 minutes. I forgot what it was. Express train? No, it was the train that doesn't stop. So he was not happy with me. But I was talking to him. People were like, "Aren't you?" No, I need to talk to him and find out why. I really want to know. It's not because I'm being a jerk. I just really want to know why he thinks that swastika is a great piece of work or whatever he thought it was. He did it on purpose. So I said he wanted attention. I'd like to give him some, but also it didn't bother me personally, but for my friends who survived the Holocaust, I was like, I can't be feeling this right now. I just didn't like it, but I didn't mind talking to him, but he hated talking to me. He had his friend in second and third party say, he doesn't talk to Black people. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. I said, well, I'm just going to keep talking then until he.
Now, was that here or was that in London?
It was in Westchester County on a Metro North train about 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, about 15.
Good for you.
Yeah. And I just kept, the whole train clapped because, and actually there was a Holocaust survivor on the train who was sitting there in total anxiety. You could see it in her face. I was like, okay, she's about, I don't know how old. And I could see her face. She was totally, you could just feel the eeriness. As soon as he walked on, everyone was like this. And I was like, oh, well, this is a bold move in the Westchester train, like really in the daylight, like what's up with this guy? So I just like, oh, excuse me. I just want to know what that symbol would represent on your head. And I just, me, part comedian, but the real part was that I felt confident to say whatever I wanted to him in a nice, respectful way. And I didn't mind if he told me that he didn't like brown people because I like brown people. So I didn't care. It wasn't like, what? You don't like brown? It wasn't, I could care less. Right. I just want to know what you're thinking. Can you just share that with me? Even if you're thinking, I'd like to kill you. Okay, fine. Just tell me why. Give me a reason why. And then from there, but he didn't want to have no dialogue. But I'm just saying, I think when we come in any relationship with just the confidence in being who we are as a human being, just that. Then if my friend, like when I went to school, when I went to NYU, there was girls in my class who were called the upper elite, whoever, and had way more, whatever I guess that would be. And the girl said to me, "Oh, you don't feel intimidated?" And I said, "Why would I feel intimidated?" She's like, well, because no, girl, no, I am the best thing since Swiss cheese. Your mama didn't tell you? So it's just, and she was like, what? How could she said to me, how do you feel that confident with all the people that are racist? And I've had people say that to me. Like, don't you feel, no, don't put that on me, girl. Don't put that on me. I feel great about me. Now let's work on you. I just think it helps. And I just was wondering from your standpoint, because you grew up in a very confident home, and you're I
think it can't. With Robin asked that question earlier, and you asked it, and Robin, I'm saying we were talking what the best thing we can do for the next generation is to get okay here, and then if somebody slips and says something and has a human error, and I don't have to be so raw that people can't talk to me. You know what I mean? I let people have their problems. I have mine, right. and then you can just afford them grace without. I don't know, because it's very difficult to have certain conversations if you're so worried about saying the wrong thing, messing up.
Right.
I love relationships I've cultivated with my white friends, because stuff gets real. Things are said, and but I know their heart. And I know that, because I don't feel that way about me, even if something is said in a moment, it is not internalized. I don't have to lash out. And so it gives room for things to grow and evolve without people trying to say all the right things to me all the time because they're worried about, So it's good if you can send your kids out like that. I applaud my parents. I don't know how they made me just believe these wonderful things about me. On what all was going on, they did an amazing thing.
Yeah, no, you said that right, especially during the Jim Crow and all those eras. Yes, I thank God for the 60s because I couldn't have been before that because they would have definitely got rid of me.
Yeah, I mean, I was right there, and I didn't know it, and I just want to share this with you guys. My cousin, Dr. Phyllis Beach, we've been working on our family reunion, and she does this amazing research, and she found the actual slave documents.
What? Wow, that's big because that's hard to find. You have to have that Oprah money to find those.
I'm telling you right now, that was such a moment. Everything just got so real. Wow. Looking at those documents, and I marveled even more at how I get to be here. What amazing. They were sold on a slave block, and I'm here.
I think of that all the time, ancestors.
I don't think I ever thought of it until I thought of it. I see a movie. I'm so distant from it, but seeing it in black and white just made me feel so many things, and mainly just jubilant that I'm able to do whatever I can to make it worth it.
Wow. That's powerful. That is your own family member that you can tangibly, I've heard stories from my grandmother, then the grandmother's those kind of stories.
Yeah. I posted it on Facebook because I just couldn't get over them writing this down and documenting this happened.
Wow.
And so to be able to be here and be a part of anything positive and insightful and forward moving is a testament to why they endured, So yeah, I have a right to feel good about myself. I owe it to them.
Yes,
at
absolutely.
the very least.
Well, that's something my foster mother used to say to me, which is weird. I didn't know what she meant until I got older. But that was one of the ways I dealt with racism or anything that was weird or different. She used to say, think of what your ancestors went through. You couldn't be here if they didn't go through all that. So you owe them something to be something, to do something for yourself. At least be a decent human being.
It's very interesting because way back we're talking about the people saying, well, why should I pay for something that my ancestors did if my ancestors? And then you look at, your story, Helena-Joyce, and go, no. And being Asian, we respect our ancestors. Ones we never even met, ghosts from way back, because they are a part of us. I'm here because of them. So it's very interesting how people look at the different angles of their ancestors. I mean, we all come from somewhere, folks.
Yeah, we do.
We're here because of a lot of other people.
Yes, and that's why it's important for all of us to figure out how to get along and at least tolerate each other, at least, if nothing else. You don't have to love each other, but at least I think
they walk a mile in another person's shoes. I mean, it's got. I don't know. Karen, does that do anything when you hear that? Like, I mean, I'm just curious because I'm always asking questions. When you hear, how does that land with you?
And I like to say walk in their skin. I like to say walk in their skin.
Walk in their shoes. That's
their skin.
So going forward,
But
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm curious because when I'm talking and I'm in something like that, it said, is there any sense, what does it do anything just for you feeling it for your friend, or do you feel any part of it that would be worth sharing?
I mean, just real quick, because I know that we are, there is time for all of us, but I think that I wonder, and this could be a conversation for later, if I'm ever really going to be able to walk in somebody's shoes. Like I want to listen and I want to learn. And when I do hear something, because you know that I care deeply about you, Helena-Joyce. So when I do hear something that is great, I feel great for you. And when I hear something that's terrible, I feel terrible for you. But I don't know. I would never want to say that I could walk in your shoes. I could only say that I could walk beside you and be your friend.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about all being actors and performers, right? I mean, one of the biggest lessons in acting is when when you're in that person's skin, when you become that character, you understand how that person thinks and what they've been through. Then you get you have compassion and empathy for that person, even if you're playing someone who's you might not at all relate to at all, you know. But then you put yourself in that person's shoes or their skin, and you understand, so you can imagine that. But I don't know if everyone does that. I think if everybody did have that in them, then the world would definitely be a better place.
Absolutely.
Again, all our experiences are different.
Yes. Well, that's why we should share them. That's exactly why we should share them, and not be intimidated by them. I mean, that's when I think about solutions as we wrap up. One of the things I say is don't be intimidated by someone else's story. So whether that's, my dad was really racist and I was not kind to Black people, whether it's I'm a Black person, I'm saying, well, I was never around anyone, blah, 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 whatever that is, appreciate that that's what it is. And okay, where do we go forward? How can I just be in a room with you and even if I don't have dialogue with you, just be in a room and be comfortable enough to be in the room with you without feeling that I have to do something to you because you're not like me. That's my thing.
And I think that that's true across the board, because sometimes we can get so used to being around our circle that we have a hard time actually hearing anything that's different from our circle. And that makes it impossible for us to really ever come together. We just keep coming together in our circle. And that's been a frustration for me, across race lines, political lines. We got to find a way to be in conversation with others other than the ones that just agree with how we feel. And we're really struggling in that area.
Yes. Well, you're a great advocate for that, Helena-Joyce, because you really push for that. You really do. You push the boundaries and go, well, let's have this topic or take it from this angle, which most people wouldn't look, especially you being in New York in a very liberal angle.
Yeah.
But say, well, let's throw this in the mix and have people really think, before they open their mouth. Really think about it, or really listen to what the other person is saying first. That's it. You may not agree, but at least listen.
Yeah, it's really true, because I did grow up in an era where we had Dan Rather, Walter Cronkite. They were real journalists, and you didn't know what their political parties were affiliated. It wasn't like Fox and CNN. Right. You actually could hear all these bits of information and take it in. It helped.
Wow. Well, we have to start really just using all of our brain, is what I say, and sharing. Heart. Yeah, and heart. But Karen, I know you have to go, and we will wrap up. But is there anything last thing you'd like to say as a final solution, or anything on EAG, anything?
I think that there's no solution, but this is an ongoing thing, and we just have to keep doing the work every single day. In our corner of the world, Helena-Joyce and Chris and everybody at EAG are really just trying to create a space where people feel they can come and they can just share these things, good, bad, indifferent, whatever their perception, however they've been raised, that they can just come together and say, this is what my perspective is. And we can start cultivating that compassion and understanding. So thank you for having us, Tanya. And I hope everybody will check out our Sustainable Conversations on the last Monday of every night, the last Monday of every month.
At 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
January 30th. January 30th is the next
And
one.
how do
January
people
30th.
What's the Facebook group they can go to join, or how would they get that?
They can go to actorsguild.org
Oh, I
and
have
find
that
it in
already.
our events.
Okay, I have that already. Actors.
And our Facebook and Instagram is Actors Guild NYC.
There you
so
go.
they can find it there as well. And we look
Don't
forward
we have
to
a group, Sustainable Conversations group on Facebook as well?
we do.
Yeah, Sustainable Conversations. Yeah,
We
they
do.
need to be invited, but if they ask to be invited, I'll either all of us we can let them in.
Is that right? Actors
That
Guild.
is correct.
That's correct. Okay, so you guys can go there and find it. You can also inbox me always, as you know. I'm famous for saying, I'm famous for connecting people together. I love that because really that's what it's all about is connection.
Yeah, Tanya, thank you, because that was really, really informative, and I was very excited because I'm not always.
I'm glad I excite you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I am a
Robin
comedian,
was,
so I
Robin
will have to
was
leave
some really helpful work out here.
Yeah. No, I think that you all are greatly intertwined, and I wish there was a way to intermingle both of these sustainable with the center, because all those people are little, I call them angel legions, who will go out and spread the word. And
I would love to explore that. I could see working with her. That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's amazing. And I've known Robin. She didn't mention it, but my daughter's 34. I've known Robin for 32 years. As a Quaker, yeah.
As a Quaker,
we met at a Quaker meeting, yes. And she was my one of my best advocates. I'll call her. I'll say I loved her. It's from day one. So I've known her a long time. Great character, great spirit, and tenacity like nobody's business. So y'all are in the same realm. I'll say, of when you're committed to something, you're committed. So thank you all three of you. I said 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you all three of you. Robin left for taking the time to come. Any final last thought? Anything that you missed, that you might have missed, that a viewer might be listening, and thinking something? Anything you can say to them?
And I'm gonna run before those final thoughts, but I can't wait to hear them.
Yes.
Thank you guys. So great to see all of you. We'll see you on the 30th.
Okay.
Miss you, Karen.
That's right. The 30th is your next Sustainable Conversations, right?
The 30th, is it?
Yep.
It's a Monday night,
exactly.
7 p.m. And if you need to figure out how to get in, it's free to listen in, to help, assist, or however you want to say it. But please, you got to go. Tell your friends, especially if you have a friend that you know is a little suspect with racism and prejudice. Please, I'm not saying it to be facetious. I'm saying it because it's like an infection right now, racism. It's like it's just spreading everywhere, and it just won't go away. It's like, oh, it's on me here, it's on me, and I can easily like hold my head up and say, whatever. But that's just not going to it's not going to help. It's just going to keep getting worse. So my theory is, if somebody tells someone else, eventually we'll get to the point of talking, at least just talking. I'm not asking for nothing. I'm not asking for your home or your kids, your firstborn. Just talking, having conversation. That's all we need. Sustainable conversation is great for that. You can come and share your stories about, maybe you grew up different than Tommy or Jane or, Quim, whoever. And that's fine. Who cares? It's okay. All those stories are important. And all those stories matter in how we treat each other as human beings.
It does
But
matter.
I wouldn't.
Go ahead.
It all starts with a conversation. And Tanya, you're great. You know, you're a regular at Sustainable Conversations, and what you bring to the table is so precious and valuable. And you know, the next one is a conversation on the conversation. So we'll be talking about really geared toward our regulars. Is there anything that we missed or anything that was misunderstood? Let's talk about that. Let's get it out there. You know, if you're willing to. Anybody that's new that's joining the conversation, I think the question might be, how do you keep a conversation on racism in America sustainable? How do you do that? So it's specific and personal. You know,
I like that. I got to remember to promote that because.
Well, I would encourage everybody, no matter how tolerant you think you are. One of the things I have said and I've observed is that oftentimes the ones who have viewed themselves as the tolerant group have proven tolerant only when others are saying what they agree with, and it is very helpful to check. Are you tolerant when somebody comes in and says something that you consider over here? I mean, are you tolerant if somebody says I'm not for abortion?
Right.
Are you tolerant? You say you're tolerant, but you got to check your level of tolerance. They should have a right to have that belief as long as they do not interfere with your right to have a choice. But we don't always check our tolerance and vice versa. We know that the other side might be intolerant, but challenging each of us to check our own level of how tolerant are you really? Are you only tolerant when people agree with you? Because how can we get into conversation if we can't find some level of tolerance for people who right now see it a different way? Right.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'm really excited about the work you're all doing. I'm excited about your Sustainable Conversations, the 30th. And that's just because, again, it's just this much hope that that the right person will hear what they need to hear to change their heart. Because I'm really just all about peace right now. That's it. I don't care about all the other stuff. It's just peace, love, happiness after the pandemic, being locked in the house for 2 years. Let's go, people. Let's go. There should be nothing to be intimidated by or scared by or whatever. There should be nothing. It should all be love. And that's the one thing I can say I've been seeing over here. I go to the street market. There's people out. There's people, families are
girl,
out.
you need to come back before you get ruined.
I know.
You're having too much, you know, there's all this peace. You need to come back in the trenches.
I will definitely see y'all before this summer. I'll see you brief, but I will definitely see you.
I might need to come over here. Come on, Chris, let's go.
I know, right? That's true. I'm gonna make it a point to
let's go to London, Chris.
I don't know how we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen for sure because
you deserve a vacation.
Well, that's right. Everyone deserves a vacation. Are you kidding? Everyone. But
no,
yeah,
I just deserve a monument. Just want the monument.
That's right.
That's it.
My bad.
I'm easy. I'm really easy.
We got some work to do.
Tanya, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're just beautiful. Thank you.
I appreciate you. And any last words before we go?
That was it.
Okay, so just hang out for 1 second. And I want to see something here. Just give me 1 second.